sea, ¿no? Y luego facilitarte a ti que no.
By the way, you gave me can I share my screen? Did you give me the right to
I'm going to
share?
give you the access.
Okay.
You can share your screen as well. We have 3 minutes left. Did you saw the course that we want to do about venture capital?
Yes.
You wanted to participate as well, isn't it, for the business intelligence?
Yes, this is a topic I suggested, but
No.
because I'm not entirely I'm not on the side of the venture capital. That's one of the things that I didn't do yet. So.
No, so it's going to be good because we're going to train between us. We are going to be the testers.
Okay, great.
But we will see how we can manage and how we can set it up.
Okay. Okay, so I see that I can share the screen.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if
I am already recording, huh?
Okay.
We will put it up into YouTube. If how do you want to proceed? Are you going to do 10 minutes and then you can stop for Q&A, or you want to make the Q&A at the end of the session?
I think it would be better to do the Q&A at the end of the session. Otherwise, I think it will be difficult to narrow everybody to a specific topic, and we might go on a tangent, discuss something entirely different. I don't mind any way you want, but I think at the end it would be more useful. On the other hand, I was maybe thinking that we can also do, maybe I will stop at certain points and ask for questions up to this point as well, because.
Okay, we will use a chat. So any questions that is coming over, I will read it for you. Okay?
Yeah, no problem.
And it's 4 o'clock. We will wait 1 minute, 2 minutes more.
Okay.
Just in order to start since the beginning.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Liad.
Hi, Taryn. How are you?
Amiram, Liad, she's also a board member of Impulse4women. She's also from Tel Aviv.
Yes.
Yeah, I know
Hi,
she's very fast. She made contact today already. So.
Yeah, through LinkedIn, yes.
Yes.
Here in Israel, we are very close, so it's running fast.
That's great.
Yes. How is the weather today in Barcelona?
Wow, it's super sunny.
Yeah, here too. It's like warm suddenly.
It's coming spring soon.
Yes.
You can see it with the way that the sun, the strongness of the light of the sun.
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm. But we have Laila. Laila, you're there, and she's from which part of Africa are you? Because we have Laila here, I know.
Yeah. I'm from Ghana.
Yeah, from
Hello.
Ghana.
Ah,
Yeah.
Ghana.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, we're gonna start. Just a very quick introduction. Well, Dr. Amiram, he is working for corporates, and he's also a teacher for universities, and he's an engineer. Also, he's jury member for the European Commission in the Irish Funds Innovation Program. And well, he is part of Impulse4women. He's in our advisory board as well for private equity. And he's going to talk today about how to fundraise one of the most difficult topics for all the startups, and we're wishing to hear what are you going to say and which tips are you going to tell us today. So please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'll just share my screen with you. Okay. Let's just see. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk today about some fundraising fundamentals for startups, and I'm going to focus on the means and ways for raising funds. I'm going to talk about, of course, about the need, but I'm also going to talk about different aspects, and I'll finish with some practical examples about what we can do. So for each entity that we are talking about, and we'll talk about some examples, we need capital. Whether it is a business entity, a business oriented, we want a startup, commercial, technological, or any other type of startup, or if we are dealing with a social venture, something that is for the benefit of the public, for the benefit of the planet, etc. All of them need capital, even if they are not what we call profit-oriented entities. So in businesses, the reasons that we are going to need a capital is to maintain the human resources, whether we are working with volunteers that are people that are not collecting salary at the moment, or we're talking with hired people. We need to pay subcontractors, we need to purchase materials, we need to do marketing, we need to promote the ideas, and we need some sort of administration in order to keep all of that going. But also if we are doing if we are in the social venture area, again, we need to maintain the human resources. We need to pay we need again to pay subcontractors, materials, marketing, and administration, the needs. Even if the operation is very different, the needs are very similar. And it doesn't matter if you are doing something that you want to do for the benefit of the general public, you still need to be able to raise the capital for it. This is an important point. It's not enough to have a good idea. It's not enough to have something that is dear to you and that you think that is important. You need also to know how to raise the capital for it. So when we are talking about capital generation, there are several ways in which we can do it. In business, we can raise it by investment. Normally, we will do it in order to initiate the business, in order to have a faster development. We are going to raise the funds in order to allow us to do big things. We might, at a certain point, use what we call debt, meaning loans, credit, and other forms of debt, in order to do continuous development, to do the ongoing operation of the business. The main problem is that in most cases, you need some sort of guarantees in order to raise debt. It's not very easy, certainly not for a business at the beginning of the life. And of course, we can generate in business another source of capital is from the operation. If our business is profitable, it can, or even at the beginning when it is not, it can still generate some of the revenues and some of the profits that we can accrue inside our venture, and it will help us to reduce the needs to raise funds from external sources. Now, when we are dealing with the social ventures, the equivalent of investment in many cases would be donations. In this case, people who are willing to donate to the cause or to donate to the organization. It can be private entities, it can be public entities. It can serve for the initial starting of the business. It can serve for fast development, but it can also be run for the daily operation of the business. That again is a possibility, but again, it's a little bit remote possibility because you need to show some sort of income that would cover this debt. And unless you have a venture that is generating an income, in order to pay back the debt that you accrue, you will probably need to get some donations. So if you already need to get the donation for that, why don't you exclusively focus on this source? Generating revenues from operation, like we said, in social venture is rare, but it can be done. Tom Peters, who is a guru in businesses, said that one of the main hindrance or main obstacles for social ventures is the fact that their daily operation does not include the generation of resources that they're going to need in order to continue their life. He uses this as the separating rule between a business and a social venture. If you're generating your resources, you're probably a business. If you are not generating resources and you need to do that as a special activity, you're probably a social venture. This is a side debate, but this is one of the main difficulties in forming a social venture. So, show me the money, like they say. What are the sources? So we said that we can get investment or donation. We can get them for private or for public. Private is different donors or different investment. It can be angels, it can be other private, even some private organization. But there are also public organizations that give support to social organization, or that can help you with some public funds towards your business. We are going to talk a little bit about that today. We have debt is normally raised from financial institutions. It can be banks, it can be other financial institutions that are willing to loan you money or to give you credit. Normally, they would want some guarantees, assurances, and other means. By the way, this is a possibility that is also supported by some public organizations, where the public organization will supply the guarantees and will therefore allow you to get loans or credit when you don't have the guarantees yourself to put them up to. We'll see some examples for that later on. And of course, revenue, which is in fact what in business we aspire for, because this is our financial independence. We don't need to raise funds from external sources after that. So like we said, initialization, operation, and the development process. One of the important things, if you're running your own venture, you need to be able to cope with all of these in order to be able to fit each one for the different needs of your business or your venture. Now, all of this may sound easy, interesting, and fun, but each of these have a cost. It's not just that what you're getting, it's also what you need to pay in order to do it. And the cost is not always in money. So let's talk about the sources and their cost. If we are trying to raise funds from public organizations, first of all, public financial organizations, if you are a business, they might want some equity. They will certainly want to know or to get involved in your management. They might want to have some affiliation with you. They want you to recognize them as your sponsors. If you're talking about government institutions, they can be local, national, supranational. Tyreen mentioned the European Commission. This is one of the supranational organizations. It's not the only one that is supporting businesses around the world. They have the loan terms. There is an administrative burden because these are public institutions. They have a responsibility to report on their activities to the public, and therefore they pass some of that administrative burden to you, to the beneficiary of the support. And of course, there are regulations. They are less flexible due to the last two items. If you're talking about private sources, if they are investors, they will certainly want some equity. They will want to get involved or at least to scrutinize your management. Again, affiliation is an important part for them. If you're talking about financial organizations, there are oversight. They have a financial and administrative control. They want to make sure that you are not getting their funds and running away for some luxury resort to enjoy the funds. So you're going to have some scrutiny, audits, etc. But they have a benefit that they are a little bit more flexible because after all, they are private and they can do more or less what they think is right. Revenue is the best option because if you can generate that, normally the administrative burden is minimum and you have complete freedom. So I think that what we will try to do now is we will try to talk about the public government sources, and we'll try to focus on the rationale behind them. But before, I promised Irene that I'm going to give you some chances to ask some questions. So is there anyone who has any questions? Are there any questions in the chat?
Not yet.
Not yet. Good.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the public government sources. Let's talk about the rationale. Why should the government or government agencies get involved at all in the support of startups or social ventures? Well, first of all, they want to increase the economic activities. They want to show the economic growth. They want to create public relations. Some of them are created just for that point. Some of them are doing that in order to support other issues on the agenda, such as support employment, strengthen the population in remote or peripheral areas, different agendas normally linked to political issues, to political and social issues, but they have a stake in promoting the economic activity. They normally have a very, like we mentioned before, they are under regulation, they are under public scrutiny, and therefore the management is very structured. They have specific processes in order to publish the availability of funds, the rules for allocating the funds, the submittal process, etc. These are all under the process issue. Then they have to do monitoring and they do auditing. After all, these are public funds, so they have to show that they are controlled. And in some cases, they would like you to pay back to pay them back the money that you received. Just to make sure that competition is kept on a fair basis, or in order to raise additional resources for themselves, various reasons, and this is one of the points that you need to look for. One of the major interests in most of these government public sources is that they want to be involved. They certainly want to monitor and to audit, but they normally do not want to get involved in owning the business. Of course, you might find places around the world when it is not like that. Singapore is one of the cases in which the government gets involved in equity. But in most cases, it's just want to make sure that what you're doing adheres to the regulation and fits the policy and not get involved in equity or in owning the business. So we mentioned that there is an administrative burden because you're dealing with public funds. There are government criteria, documentation, regulations, etc. Normally, this is a long-term involvement. The decision process is sometimes complex. If you have worked with the European Commission, it is complex and it takes a lot of time. It's very rigid. There are boundaries that are very clearly drawn, and good as your idea might be, if it doesn't fit the criteria or the boundaries, you cannot get funded. And of course, there is limited accessibility. These funds are not limitless, and you never know who else is competing. So you are normally ranked, and then you just have to hope that you're ranked high enough. But there are benefits. Normally, it is known that they are available. These organizations make a big effort to make the public know that they are there, that they are ready to pay. The criteria for selection in most cases are clear and transparent in the way that they are published, that they are explained. Normally, if something is not clear, you also have an address to ask for clarification regarding the criteria. There is, of course, no equity demand. So in a way, this is like debt funding, but it is a very kind and supporting type of debt. No equity, these are not partners. Once you either complete your involvement or you have finished repaying them in the cases where you need to repay them, you are no longer annexed to them and you are completely free. And in many cases, the management involvement is a lot less than in private investors, mainly due to the volume of activity and volume of projects that such public sources have to deal with. So we're going to talk a little bit about the aspects of fundraising for public sources. We're going to discuss about the mapping of the sources, how you select and how you apply for funding, the fact that you actually, by applying and for the fund, have done only half the work. The second half is heavier. That's dealing with getting the project approved, contracted, and then managing the project. So let's start with the mapping. So if you want to do it efficiently, you need to work according to simple but strict methodology. You need to identify the resources and you need to use your resources in order to find them. I said that they are not hiding, but again, it's difficult today with all the information that is going around to find all of them. You need to dedicate the required time. If you don't want to dedicate the required time, you can outsource some of these activities, but you need to know that there is a cost to that, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. So there is a cost-benefit ratio to outsourcing the mapping of the sources and other parts of this activity. You need to use, in order to select the right ones, you need to use your own criteria. You need to assume or to assess how much money you're going to need, the amount that you're going to need to raise, the time that you will require that money to appear in the company. Most of these organizations have their own cycles, so you need to be able to fit their cycle to your needs. You need to decide which cost you are willing to accept. Are you willing to take equity? Then you might consider private sources. If you don't want to give up the equity, and you want to work with public sources fund, you need to make sure that their interest, their agenda fits yours, that the affiliation will be something that will support your business in the future and not hinder it. For example, in the US, there is some apprehension in business towards government involvement. Not everybody likes to know that the government has been involved in the business before. It's okay if the government is buying from you, but it's a little bit less good if the government is also involved in the setting up of the business and the management. You might want to consider the level of management involvement that the investors will require and other criteria that we have mentioned before. The most important part is to understand that the mapping is not a step function. It's not something that you do once and then you're finished. It's something that you need to keep doing all the time because opportunities appear all the year round, and sometimes they appear twice a year or once in every 2 years, and you need to be with a good meter about what is going on and to monitor what is going outside. Plus, as we mentioned before, your needs might change. So it's good to know who else is now available. And if they are available, they might answer your current need or even your future needs. Please remember that there is a time constraint here, that each of these organizations has a cycle of activity, meaning that they might take between 3 months to a year to decide whether or not to award you the money. So sometimes when you want to raise funds from such a source, you are not raising for your current activity, but for where you expect to be in a year from now. So we are alternating all the time with the methodology and keeping the criteria open. So let's say that you did map your resources, the resources that are available currently, and now you need to select which one you want or which ones you want to apply for. So you need to identify your need and the relevant resources we mentioned before. That's the fit between your need and the source. As we said, take into account the time limit that is in these systems. You need to make sure that you account that into your business plan and into your development plan. It's good to consult with experienced applicants before you apply, because some of the information that you see on the web or in the publication looks very good, but it does not contain all the information. And experienced applicants may tell you how it is to live with these investors or with these sources on a long term, both the positive points and the more difficult points. So you need to know what you are getting into. Evaluate the additional value. Not all the resources give you only money. Some of them will give you training. Some of them will offer you a network. There are additional values, and this might be interesting for you as well, on top of the money that you want to get from them. And then you need to select. Once you have selected, you start the process of application. First of all, since, like I said before, this is not going to be a one-time event, it's good to establish the infrastructure inside your organization, all the documentation about the establishment of the business, the structure of the ownership, financial reports, other regulatory or a standardization certification that you might have, anything that might be useful for an application. If you keep these files ready, it will help you not only in the first application, but in applications in the future. This is part of the internal infrastructure that you would need to develop in order to make your startup financially viable in the long term. You need to identify the forms that you're going to need to fill, the application process, in order to know what you'll need. Some of the processes have several stages. You need to prepare different documentation for different stages. You might have to pass an interview. You have to prepare for all of this. It's better to know beforehand, so you need to learn the process. You need to create the timetable in order to complete the application on time. Things are better now than they were many years ago. This organization wants to make the application as automatic as possible. But again, if you don't want to do it, or if you are afraid the first time to do it, this is the point where you might want to employ subcontractors, consultants. There are many firms who would happily, for a fee of course, help you to prepare the application and even help you to submit it. You need to select them with care. It's true that they save you a lot of time on learning the different aspects. They will ask you the right questions. They will help you prepare the application. The main problem is that if you treat this, like I recommended before, as a process that you will do again and again, once they leave you, the knowledge is also gone. It's something that you have not created as a capability inside your organization. So let's say that either alone or with some help, you manage to submit the application. Now you need to support it during the evaluation. In some cases, you need to give additional information. You might need to prepare a second stage proposal. You might have to go and participate in an interview or a pitch. All of these will be part of the evaluation, and you need to be ready to support them. after all, you want to get the money. You need to follow up on the answers that you get. You need to prepare to learn from the application. In some cases, even the evaluation process itself might give you some indication as to where you should look, what you should look for, which way you should go, where the evaluation or the evaluators considered your application or your organization a little bit weaker, meaning these are the capabilities that you might need to purchase or to develop. It's a good thing to listen to this, because these organizations normally have a lot of experience. They see a lot of application. They also see what happens to the applicants later on. So there's quite a lot of experience there. It's easier to learn from them. And then you can prepare for the next stage or for the next time. So the submission or the application of the for a grant is not the end of the process. And if you're lucky and you've done everything well and you selected well, prepared yourself well, and you fit nicely into the public funding source, you're going to get awarded. Once you get the award, normally it will be some sort of a contract, an agreement saying that you will get money to do this and this and this. It also states the requirements of reporting, the availability for monitoring. Normally, you will not get all the money in a chunk at the beginning. You will get it normally as a return on your expenses or some sort of deferred payment. You need to check what you have to do in order to get these payments, when they are due, and you need to check your award for details to make sure that the public fund source did not make any changes to your application. Sometimes they might decide that some of the activities that you described in your work plan, they do not want to support. And they will state that in your award. So you need to be careful not to spend their money on that, because otherwise you'll need to start covering uneligible expenses later on. This is not always easy. It's best to understand this before you start the project. Now you need to note the crucial points. They are the financial, they can be in the scope of work, they can be legal. You need to share the information with the relevant entities. If you have a project in your organization that is dealt with by different people from different aspects, each of them need to know what they should pay attention to, and not think that they can do whatever they consider right without asking. You need to control all the time that how much was your budget, the approved budget, how much is the money that you are receiving, how much more do you need to do in order to get the rest of it. You need to make sure what are your refunding terms. We mentioned that at the beginning, the repayment. You need to invest the required management effort. This is just as important, even more important than the application. Again, if you don't want to do it yourself, if you're worried about it, same consultants or similar consultants to the application can also help you do the management, both the financial and also the other aspects, making sure that you report correctly and on time, that you use the right forms, help you in preparing for that, help you in the final reports and final financial reports. All of this is very important, because applying for a public source is nice. Getting award is even nicer, but this is just a promise of the money. In order to actually get the money, you need to be able to manage the project and to manage it correctly. Follow the regulation. You need to know what you're doing. That is true everywhere in life, but with public organization even more so. We mentioned the rigidity, the administration, the regulation before. Little room for play here. A good advice is to keep constant contact with the funding source. Always make sure that you report before they ask you to report. Try to be in contact, even if you have nothing to report, just to make sure that they don't think that you're calling them only when you have a problem or you need something. You don't want them to be afraid to see your emails or your phones because they know that you only call in cases of a huge crisis. You want them to be useful and you want them to be used to the fact that you're calling them even sometimes just to check up and to see that everything is okay. Of course, don't do it daily because they will block you, but try to do it on a regular basis that is somewhere between too much and too little. Like everything in life, a balance is important here as well. And the most important part, always prepare for the day after. Like I said, these are normally funds that would go for a project. This project may be the setting up of a new shop. There might be the development of a new product. They might be for setting up a subsidiary in another country. They fund you, you report, fine. What are you going to do the next day? How are you going to run your business? How are you going to find the resources? Always prepare for the day after. And if you need to apply to a different resource, if you need to do some more fundraising, start well ahead of that. So I want to, before we go to the discussion of the questions, I want to show you two examples for such public sources. One of them is the Eureka program. I'm not sure whether or not you are familiar with them. Let's see if this will, can you see it? Anybody? Can you see my screen?
No.
Okay, and then let's see what I can do in order to share. Okay, I will do the share again. Okay, now can you see it? You see Eureka?
Yes.
Okay. So Eureka is well, it's a European Plus organization. It is now, there are 45 countries that are members in it. It has different programs. It has a nice website in which you can see which are the programs. You can look at which programs are operated in your own country, how they are funded. Each country has its own funding methodology for Eureka. And this is normally for international projects with partners from different countries. Each of the partners is being funded by their own country according to the country model. So you can have different partners in the same project. Each one of them is being funded in a different way, all of them working together on a joint project. So these are the different programs. And you can also go and try and look for your own country. I want to make sure that you stay with me. So, okay, this is in Israel, but let's go for Spain. And you can see what is going on in Spain. For example, Eureka is being managed by CDTI. And of course, if you go here, you can see all the things that CDTI is supporting. Of course, from a certain point, it helps if you know Spanish in order to be able to understand everything that is going on. But this is the nice thing about Eureka, is that one step after Eureka, you can get and see your project in your country and get the explanation in your native language. It helps, all the forms are there as well. It helps you to understand what is going on. You have a national contact point, which you can talk with your own, using your native language. It's much more friendlier than other international sources in which you normally have to use either English or have to find some sort of translation in order to be able to understand both what is going on and to get answers for your questions. One of the reasons that I wanted, this is Eureka, I showed you Spain. There are also a similar, I wanted to show you a similar example in Ireland, but it's again very much like in Spain. You immediately move to the Irish. In Ireland, the entity is Enterprise Ireland. Enterprise Ireland operates several innovation programs in Ireland, so you can see other programs and other things that you might do or that might interest you. And the reason that I selected Eureka is that from that link, you can actually go into the different agencies in your own countries and find out the general programs that are being operated in your country, which you can apply for. So this is a good entry point when you want to start mapping the different entity or public governmental entity in your country, especially if you are in Europe or in the other 45 countries that are involved in Eureka. This could be a good starting point that will refer you to your local agency, if you don't know what your local agency is. Another, not this one, just to make sure that we are not talking just for Europeans, the US also has an agency dealing with small and business, with small and medium businesses. It's called the Small Business Agency, SBA. Of course, they have their own website, which I will now try to share with you. Must be an easier way to do it. As you can see, SBA believes in women entrepreneurs. This is the, all the pictures that I managed to see are all of women. They have even now the Women's History Month. And they have here, again, this is an example, different support schemes, from how to write a business plan, how to make a market research, how to launch your business, to manage it, how to grow the business. You can get your local assistance in different districts, different states. There is a learning center. One of the interesting things that I wanted to show you in the learning center, special programs for women. It's a special platform to learn how to do entrepreneurship, how to start your own business. By the way, it's very nice. I would recommend that you use that link. It's a nice platform to learn. It might give you some new ideas. It's completely free. It's open. Use it and enjoy. It's a wonderful tool. And there are quite a lot of other things here. Most of them would be relevant only if you're American or operating in the US, but quite a lot of the learning activities or the learning information can be useful here. Market survey as well. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful source to use when you're trying to start your own business. So this is the SBA. This is the Ascend program. In this case, you identify the source, you can identify the specific program that fits you. I gave Ascend as a platform, but you can also identify a program. You can look for the offices and consultancies that are closest to you to get some of the information, help in submittal in making the selection of the specific program. And you can download from them all the forms, fill it, and also apply through the network. So if I, I think this is the time to go ahead and conquer the world for you. I placed a map in case you needed a map. If you want some more information, all you have to do is you can use the QR code here. If you can screen it with your mobile, you can get contact information to me. And if you have any questions, I think that after this meeting, you can also contact me via email or telephone, and I can give you the answers. So I think that we have some questions.
Yes, thank you, Amiram. It has been a very interesting conversation. And do we have a question from Banja? She's asking at what stage a startup should go for what option for an investor, a loan, a grant?
Well, most startups go at the beginning to an investors. They actually look for an angel. Loan is a little bit of a problem because in order to get a loan, you will probably need to use as collateral your house or whatever other property you want. And most entrepreneurs would want to avoid that type. Otherwise, getting a credit or getting any sort of a debt loan is very difficult, especially as most of the financial institutions that are dealing with that are not used to high risk ventures. In some cases, like I mentioned, I think somewhere in the presentation, you can get a loan that is guaranteed by a government agency or by a local agency, in which case the bank would get the guarantees. They would probably ask for your personal guarantees, but they know that they're also getting some guarantees from the government, and therefore you can get a loan. But especially for business startups, more or less those that are technologically oriented or have a product in mind, an investor is the main first choice.
Okay.
Grant, if it fits, it normally is okay, but as you don't get 100% of the funding from most of the grants, you need to have an additional investment. So it might be a combination of the two.
And when do you recommend to go after an investor?
Well, since even getting money from an investor that you already know, that you already talked to, might take 3 months to 6 months, you should start well ahead talking to the investors. You should try and build, I would first try and build my network, try to build a network that will point me towards different sources for grants, different sources for investors. There are differences between angel investment, between venture capital investment. So you need to be able to build the right network for that. I would also like to be able to learn from the experience of others, the network with other entrepreneurs in the field, learning from their experience. Who is behaving nicely, who is behaving more strictly is an important tool at that point. And also to be able to know where I would like to approach to get a public grant. Again, this is very important to know, to map your resources. So the first stage would be to build a network. The second stage would be either using the network or your own activities to map the sources and then to make the selection. You need to remember that there are two crucial resources that an entrepreneur has, scarce resources, like they say. One is money, and the other one is time. And the most important part is to be able to focus on the goals that you want to reach and to go for them. Because if you start trying to do too many things at once, you normally will end up with nothing. So you need to select your priority and go for them. And therefore you need to be able to decide what you're going to do alone and what you're going to ask others to help you.
Thank you. And which will be the first investors that we should approach once that we have an investment need?
Well, normally we go to angel investors. They are willing to put a smaller amount of money, getting also very little equity. These investors like to come in at this stage, or let's say the proof of concept stage, where you are just, either if it's a technology, you are just in the proof of concept of whatever product or process you want to do. If it is a service, they would normally be at the beginning where you are trying to do some market testing or trying to forward an MVP. That is a minimum viable product, meaning some sort of a prototype that shows what you can do, but it's still not the final product. And they would put a little bit of money just to help you to get to the next stage. Normally, these are investors, these angel investors. Some of them operate alone, but there are also associations of such investors. There are clubs of such investors. You need to map those that are closest to you and try to approach them. One of the advantages, by the way, of approaching Eureka or the European Framework, this SME instrument program, is actually not in order to apply for funding, but if you download the forms, the application forms, try and sit down and fill these forms. If you find areas in the forms that you cannot answer, these are the points that you need to know about your business before you approach any investor. So this is, even if you are not going to approach these public sources, the forms are a sort of a checklist that will find very quickly where are the holes in your knowledge about your business. Do you know the competition well enough? Do you know the prices? Do you know where they come from? Do you know what disadvantages they have? Do you know the regulation that is involved? Does your product have any sort of environmental aspects that you never even thought about before? Just filling the forms for yourself without submitting them will give you a very good picture where you are. I've actually did it with some of the startup that I mentored, and they changed the business plan afterwards because they found out exactly what they were going to be asking the next meeting with a private investor. Because private investors normally have a lot of experience and they know which questions to ask, and they will ask you exactly the questions that you didn't write in your business plan because this is the missing information. So use those forms from the public sources as a sort of checklist. It will improve your private investor pitch. Wow.
Well, that was a good recommendation, actually. Okay, we do have Laila asked just to mention the different types of investors, but I think that we already answered that. In case that you would like to know further information, please, Laila, can you ask another question, or you want to proceed with, go deeper with that one? And in the meantime, we're going to jump to the next one, to Marina's. They are aiming for soft funding for the new established NGO in the Netherlands. And her first project is to support female exposed farm in Africa, giving jobs to many women. Eco, agri-tech, poverty, CDG goals. What is the best way for pitching to Impulse for Women?
Well, Africa is an interesting target for different types of public funding activities. I think it was Bill Gates that started the first big push of actually private public funding for Africa. There are also different national programs operated in Canada and in Israel regarding projects that are intended to support health, employment, and food supply in Africa. And you can combine public investment, you can combine private investment with these sources. You can find them on the net, or if you email me afterwards, I can send you some links. Again, they will give you, they operate according to the SDGs. The UN has defined some 10 SDGs that are prioritized, and these organizations and these support programs operate according to these SDGs. Again, when they are national, you have to find if some, I'm not sure if there's something in the Netherlands, but that is one of the activities. Then there are UN, there is the International Monetary Fund that is supporting such projects in Africa. All these public sources are available. I'm not sure which one at the moment is open for proposal because they have a yearly cycle and all of them open at different times. But they are the right sources to begin, and to add to that, whatever private investment you can find. Most of them do not require repayment as long as you stay in Africa. If you if your farm is so successful that you start establishing farm all over the world, they might charge you some repayment, but that's a different problem.
There's any more questions? Okay, I would like to close this webinar. Giving thank you very much to Amiram for your explanation. It was super nice. Yes, normally we don't talk very further of which types of fundraising we could find besides the VCs or the business angels. So super interesting. And I want to remind you that we're doing on March 30, we're doing a pitching sessions, social online pitching sessions. We do have 70 investors right now worldwide. And for those startups that would like to apply, we do have all the, you can find all the links in our web page into Impulse4women. And I do have another thing for you. For those that are in Europe and would like to apply to the European Commission, I do have some links to some officers that they're consultants, and they will, some of them they do it for free, and other ones they charge you. But those who are interested, just send me an email so I can send you all the links to the different officers, so you can go following what Amiram was telling before. Sorry. So thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Do you want to mention anything to Amiram?
Tyrene, I will send you the presentation so that you can distribute it to anyone who wants.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there's gonna, because we're gonna put that on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
So maybe I think that is gonna be everything. I will let you know in case that.
Okay.
But there's not any problem. If you want to write me back and to let me know, it would be great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.